It is 1600. Feudal Japan. A samurai warrior sits in complete stillness in a small wooden room. Outside, a battle is coming. One he may not survive. His sword is sharp. His mind is clear. And he is completely, utterly unafraid. Not because he is reckless. Not because he does not understand the danger. But because he has already done something that most people never do in an entire lifetime. He has already accepted the outcome. He has already died in his mind. And that release, that complete detachment from what might happen, is what makes him the most effective, most focused, most dangerous person on that battlefield. 800 years later, a college dropout in a black turtleneck is sitting in a Zen meditation center in California. He will go on to build the most valuable company in human history. And the philosophy running underneath everything he creates, the obsession with simplicity, with craft, with doing one thing with complete and total commitment, does not come from a business school. It does not come from a management consultant. It comes from the same tradition as that samurai sitting in stillness in 1600. Silicon Valley did not invent the mindset that built the modern world. It stole it. From warriors who lived and died by it 800 years ago. And once you understand exactly what was stolen and why it works, you will never think about your own work the same way again. To understand the theft, you first have to understand what was taken. Bushido. The word translates literally as the way of the warrior. Bu means warrior. Shu means gentleman or person. Do means the way, the path, the road. Put them together and you get something that has no clean equivalent in the English language. Not a code of conduct, not a set of rules, a complete philosophy of how to be alive. Bushido was built on 7 virtues. Rectitude, which is doing what is right even when it costs you something. Courage, which is not the absence of fear but the decision to act despite it. Benevolence, which is using your power to protect and serve others. Respect, which is treating every interaction as worthy of your full attention. Honesty, which is speaking the truth even when it is inconvenient. Honor, which is living in a way you would not be ashamed to have witnessed. And loyalty, which is giving your complete commitment to the people and principles you choose to serve. 7 virtues. But underneath all 7, threading through every one of them like a spine, was a single master principle that the samurai never had to explain because they simply lived it. The process is the point, not the outcome, not the reward, not the recognition. The work itself, done with full presence and full commitment, is where meaning lives. Everything else is a consequence. This is the idea that Silicon Valley absorbed, rebranded, and sold back to the world as innovation. Steve Jobs did not hide his source. He studied Zen Buddhism for years before he built Apple. He had a lifelong teacher, Kobun Chino Otogawa, a Zen monk who married Jobs and officiated at his wedding. Zen Buddhism and Bushido did not originate in the same place, but they grew from the same philosophical soil. The same idea that the quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. The same insistence that doing one thing completely is worth more than doing 10 things partially. The same belief that aesthetic precision, the care you put into how something looks and feels and works, is not decoration. It is ethics. When Jobs returned to Apple in 1997 and immediately cut the product line from 350 products to 10, he was not applying a business strategy. He was applying the samurai principle of eliminating everything that dilutes your commitment to the thing that matters most. The samurai called this zanshin, continued awareness, the state of full presence that does not relax even after the action is complete. Jobs called it insanely great. Different words, same principle. But Jobs was not alone in what he borrowed. In 1950, an American named W. Edwards Deming went to Japan and taught Japanese manufacturers a philosophy of continuous improvement. The Japanese absorbed it, built on it, and gave it a name that came from their own cultural roots. Kaizen. Kai meaning change, Zen meaning good. Together, the idea that every process, however refined, can always be made slightly better. That improvement is not an event, it is a practice. A daily commitment to making the thing in front of you 1% less flawed than it was yesterday. Toyota built the most efficient manufacturing system in human history on this principle. They called it the Toyota Production System. Western business schools studied it for decades before they understood it well enough to teach it. And when Silicon Valley eventually absorbed it, they renamed it agile development. They created sprints and iterations and retrospectives and continuous deployment pipelines. They built billion-dollar consulting practices around it. They gave talks at conferences about it. They almost never mentioned that the core idea came from a philosophy rooted in the same tradition as the warrior sitting in stillness in 1600, who understood that the only way to master anything is to never stop trying to master it. There is a third concept that the samurai gave the world that Silicon Valley took and repackaged without attribution. It is called shuhari. Three Japanese words that describe the path to mastery in any domain. Shu means to follow the rule. This is the beginner phase. You do not improvise. You do not innovate. You do not have opinions about the method. You follow the form exactly as it has been handed to you by someone who has gone before. You learn the basics until they are instinct. A samurai student would practice the same sword form 10,000 times before being asked to vary it. Not because repetition is the goal, because repetition is how the body learns what the mind cannot teach. Ha means to break the rule. This is the intermediate phase. You have internalized the form so completely that you can begin to adapt it. You understand why each element exists, so you can modify it intelligently. You are no longer following rules. You are working from principles. Ri means to transcend the rule. This is mastery. At this level, the practitioner no longer thinks about technique at all. The technique has become the person. Action flows without effort, without deliberation, without the noise of self-consciousness. What athletes call flow state. What psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent a career studying and naming. What the samurai simply called being in the way. Cal Newport built an entire book and a career on a version of this idea. He called it deep work, the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks. The thing that produces real value in a world optimized for shallow attention. Anders Ericsson called it deliberate practice, the specific kind of effortful, focused, feedback-rich practice that separates experts from amateurs in every field ever studied. Both ideas are, at their core, modern Western translations of shuhari, the same map, drawn in different languages. But here is what the translation loses. Here is what Silicon Valley took but could not fully replicate. The samurai did not practice their code as a productivity strategy. They did not adopt Bushido because it gave them a competitive advantage. They did not follow the 7 virtues because research showed it improved their performance metrics. They lived the code because they believed that the quality of how you do things determines the quality of who you are. That your work is not separate from your character. That every action, however small, is a vote for the kind of person you are choosing to become. This is the part that gets lost in the translation. A samurai cutting vegetables in the kitchen was not doing a lower status task than a samurai on the battlefield. Every action performed with complete presence was an expression of the same commitment. The warrior who was careless in the kitchen would be careless in battle. The warrior who was fully present in everything they did was fully present when it mattered most. There was no separation between practice and life, between work and identity, between the small moments and the large ones. It was all the same thing. This is what modern high-performance literature keeps circling without quite landing on. James Clear writes about the identity-based change that comes from casting votes for who you want to be through small daily actions. That is Bushido. Ryan Holiday writes about focusing on the process and trusting that the outcome will follow. That is Bushido. Every flow state researcher who has ever studied what separates people who do extraordinary work from people who do ordinary work has found the same thing at the center of the difference. Not intelligence, not talent, not strategy. Complete commitment to the thing immediately in front of them. The samurai called it the way. Silicon Valley called it disruption. The researchers called it flow. The philosophers called it presence. The name does not matter. The principle underneath all of them is identical, and it is 800 years old. So what does this actually mean for you? It means the operating system you are looking for already exists. You do not need to invent a new productivity method, or find the right app, or read the next self-help book. The code has already been written. It has already been tested by people who staked their lives on it. Start with the shoe principle. Pick one thing, one skill, one discipline, one domain that matters to you, and follow the form. Do not improvise yet. Do not try to find shortcuts. Do not look for a better way before you have mastered the standard way. Practice the basics until they become automatic, until you do not have to think about them at all. This is not slow. This is the fastest path to the kind of mastery that cannot be taken from you. Apply Zanshin to your daily work. Do not let your attention relax between the important moments. The email you write to someone, the way you prepare for a meeting, the care you bring to a task that nobody will ever see. These are not small things. They are the votes you are casting for the person you are becoming. The samurai understood that how you do anything is how you do everything. Silicon Valley's best performers rediscovered this. The research confirms it. And the people in your own life who seem to operate at a different level than everyone around them are almost certainly living it, whether they know where it comes from or not. And embrace the acceptance that made that samurai in 1600 the most effective person on the battlefield. Not acceptance of failure, not resignation to whatever happens, but detachment from the outcome that frees you to pour everything into the process. The anxiety that most people feel about results is exactly what prevents them from doing the work that would produce the results they want. The samurai understood this as a matter of survival. You can understand it as a matter of living the kind of life that is worth looking back on. Silicon Valley took the code. They built trillion-dollar companies with it. They called it by different names and sold it in different packages, but the code itself has always been freely available. It was never behind a paywall. It was never proprietary. It was written by warriors who believe that how you live is more important than what you achieve. The question is not whether the code works. 800 years of evidence and every major finding in modern performance psychology says that it does. The question is whether you are willing to live by it, not as a strategy, not as a productivity hack, but as a way.
If this changed the way you think about the work in front of you, subscribe. Every week, we go deeper into the hidden history and psychology behind the people and principles that actually shape how the world works. Hit the bell so you never miss it, and leave a comment below with one thing you are going to bring your full attention to this week. One thing you are going to treat like a samurai treats a sword form. Let's see what you come up with.